Hi everyone. So my name is Christopher Russell. I'm a behavioural psychologist. I work at the Centre for Substance Use Research in Glasgow in Scotland. My primary research interest is in understanding the product factors and the psychosocial factors that drive switching behaviour primarily. And over the past year to 18 months, we've been conducting research with vapers who have been successful in quitting smoking by using e-cigarettes. And the theme of the research is to learn what we can from these successful vapers and what we can pass on to the next cohort of smokers who are curious or cautious about using e-cigarettes, but they're thinking about using an e-cigarette as a way of quitting smoking. And I'm just going to talk about two pieces of research that we've been doing. So the good news is that e-cigarette use is becoming more and more popular with each month that goes by. In the UK, the estimate is that roughly 836,000 people have already switched completely away from tobacco to use of e-cigarettes. That's the good news. Bad news is that still too few people are giving an e-cigarette a try as a way of quitting smoking. So approximately 36% of the current smokers in the UK have never tried using an e-cigarette. And in addition, there's a further group of people who do give an e-cigarette a try, but ultimately give up on e-cigarettes after a couple of puffs or a couple of days, and ultimately go back to smoking. So the benefits of persisting with e-cigarette use are lost to those people. And ultimately persuading more smokers to give an e-cigarette a try as a way of quitting smoking and supporting them to persist with e-cigarette use in the longer term is vital to the success of e-cigarettes in reducing tobacco-related harm. It may sound overly simplistic, but we can create the safest products we want if nobody uses them. It doesn't matter to population health. The products that are being developed and to be substantially safer ultimately won't help anyone if they stay on the shelves. So the question is, how can more smokers be persuaded to give an e-cigarette a try in the first instance, and then persist with using an e-cigarette in the longer term? So beyond anything that a regulator can do, or even an industry can do, I believe that the greatest opportunity for reducing tobacco-related harm can be found in connecting two groups of people, and this is largely what has happened over the last 5, 6, 7 years. On one side, you've got smokers who want to quit smoking. We all know this. A large group of smokers who are interested in quitting smoking have made many attempts to quit smoking. Some things haven't worked for them, some things have worked for a day or two, or a week or two, or a month or two, but ultimately they've went back to smoking. And now they're becoming curious about e-cigarettes, they're cautious about e-cigarettes. They're thinking about using one as a way of quitting smoking, but before they do, they want to hear the stories and experiences of people who have already quit or cut down their smoking by using an e-cigarette. On the other side, we all know that there are now a substantial number of vapers who have quit smoking by using an e-cigarette, and they're actually very passionate about telling people how they did it, especially to people who they identify with, people who are still smoking, who are in the position that they were once in. And these vapers are very knowledgeable about what they're using, how it works, how to do it, what works, what doesn't work. And they're very willing to impart this knowledge on anyone who will listen to them. Most importantly, least importantly, people like myself, academics, but more importantly, people who are smoking and people who regulate nicotine vapor products. So the first study I'm just going to summarise very quickly. At the time of doing this, we identified a pressing need for research that collects, summarises and communicates the stories of successful vapers and communicating those stories back to smokers and regulators of vapor products. And contrary to people who throw around the word anecdote, that your next door neighbour is just an anecdote, or your work colleague is just an anecdote, and so on and so on. Vaping anecdotes supplied by the thousands and the hundreds of thousands. It's difficult to keep calling it anecdotes when so many people are telling you the same story over and over. So our survey, conducted towards the end of last year, We surveyed 4,226 vaping former smokers, so people who have quit smoking completely since they started vaping regularly. So that's why I call them successful vapers. They've used an e-cigarette in the way that we want them to use an e-cigarette to stop smoking. Just a bit of details about the people who took part. At the point of the first vape, they were all smoking tobacco, roughly 24 cigarettes a day, have been smoking regularly for an average of 26 years. Participants on average vaped and smoked, dual used, for an average of 25 days before becoming an exclusive vapor. At the point of taking part in our survey, they had not smoked on average any tobacco for 14 months. The majority of our participants were vaping every day. They were using 1 to 12 milligrams of nicotine in their e-liquid. They were using a second or higher generation device, mostly tanks. And they were using non-tobacco flavoured e-liquid, although I'm not going to talk about this much now, but that's not how they started. The majority of our participants started with cigarettes, tobacco flavoured liquid, high nicotine. So we learned a lot about also the journey from first use to current use. The survey we administered collected data on many things. The things I'm going to summarise for here are these ones in green. I don't know if you can see them too clearly there. And these were the qualitative aspects of the survey. People could write as little or as much as they wanted, and in most cases they wrote as much as they wanted. So the first question of what are the main reasons why you decided to try using an e-cigarette? And again, people could write freely. This was not box ticking or sort of elicited responses. People can write whatever they want. And then afterwards, myself and my colleagues had the fun task of coding 4,000 or more pieces of discourse to try and make sense of themes that were emerging. And the most common reason for deciding to try using an e-cigarette in the first place was the desire to quit or reduce smoking. Also, that tobacco-related disease was being observed in people around them or was being personally experienced. And as my colleague Neil mentioned earlier, curiosity is a massive sort of initiating factor as well. But there was a range of reasons for these people starting using an e-cigarette. So that's why they started. Why do they continue to use an e-cigarette today? And I suppose the public health people would want us to say that it's because they want to prevent relapse. They're using it so they don't go back to smoking. But I think we're more and more going to have to get used to the idea that vaping is enjoyable. People enjoy it. And I would argue that harm reduction for any drug problem works best when the alternative to the harmful product is enjoyable to use. We had people saying in our survey, and it's something we've heard in person as well, who would have thought that just in the past 10 years we would now have something that makes quitting smoking enjoyable. Quitting smoking has always been something that's really emotionally difficult to get through. It's tough. It's waking up in the middle of the night and sweating, and it's not being able to think properly at work. And now we have something that makes quitting smoking fun, and that's being communicated to us, and that's this sort of idea of substance use being pleasurable is maybe a topic for another session. We asked people to tell us any of the changes in health, positive or negative, that they've personally experienced since they started vaping regularly, that they attribute to vaping regularly. The main benefits reported were respiratory and cardiovascular. Just to give you an idea of the respiratory things that were being mentioned: better, easier breathing, reduced or no cough or wheeze, less phlegm production, bronchitis symptoms, crackling in lungs, and so on. And what advice would you give to smokers who are thinking about using e-cigarettes as a way to quit smoking? And the vast majority of us are recommending that smokers do give an e-cigarette a try. 42% mentioning practical advice about where to buy, what not to buy, what to expect in the first few weeks, and so on. And just the more general advice, I've summarised, I think it's 8 pieces of general advice that these successful vapers want to give to current smokers. And for sort of people in the room who engage with smokers on a regular basis, these will be sort of familiar pieces of advice. Don't expect miracles when you switch to using an e-cigarette. Just do what you can do. Don't compare your story to anyone else. It might be easy for you or difficult for you, and it'll be different for someone else. Take small steps with purpose. Don't try and take heroic, giant leaps and quit on day one if that's not going to work for you. If you smoke, don't beat yourself up. It happens. Pick yourself up and go again. Be mindful of the fact that every cigarette less is an achievement, and picking yourself up after a slip is an even bigger achievement. Define yourself by your achievements, not your failures. Don't measure how far you have to go towards your end goal, but measure how far you've come. And always be mindful of the harms of smoking that you're avoiding by continuing to vape. So those are just some of the insights, a whistle-stop tour of everything that we found. And it just gives an idea of the valuable insights that are explaining how thousands of people have already initiated and established vaping in place of cigarette smoking, and crucially how thousands more may be enabled to achieve what these people have achieved. And just to go slightly into a Taylor Danko mode just now, to dismiss, misuse or underuse these individuals' insights and experiences as part of services that you run, to engage with smokers would be a massive missed public health opportunity, I think. So, and this is just something that Jack, if people are familiar with Jack Henningfield, wrote last year in response to this survey. The idea that we are sitting on a goldmine of information from people who will largely work for free, who will spread the message for free, and they're really keen to do it. And I'm sure Jack didn't mean the pun, didn't intend the pun at the end, the breath of fresh air into public health. So what came next, what came after this? So a couple of truths. Many smokers want to hear vapors' stories and experiences of using e-cigs. Many vapors want to help smokers to quit, and many are very well qualified to do so. And both sides are enthusiastic about engaging with each other. So there's this idea that when you connect a vapor who's quit smoking with a smoker who wants to quit, you have the possibility of turning one quitter into two. And the more vapors you connect with smokers, the more chance you have of quitters creating more quitters. And this is just part of an article that Sally Sattel, I don't know if she's here this year, she wrote in response to this, this idea of why not assemble a loose network of potential vaping sponsors, civic-minded people who can be signed up. It's not a long-term relationship, but they're there to help people when and as and when they need help. And this led to the idea of creating a YouTube channel called Vapors Helping Smokers to Quit. And the idea, there should be a graphic at the side, but we described this channel as featuring real people from all over the world, telling their stories, 2 minutes, okay, of how they quit smoking by using e-cigarettes. The channel is a source of information for smokers and for vapors. And I'm going to yield, this is just an overview of the channel. I'm going to yield, if I can play 2 minutes of one of the videos.
Hi folks, this is Karen, and I'm from Mooresville, Pennsylvania. I am 57 years old. I will be 58 this September. And I quit smoking 6 or 8 years ago. I used Chantix to quit smoking because I was having implants done for my dentures, and the dentist would not do them unless I quit smoking. In hindsight, if I had known more about personal vaporizers, to be honest, I probably would have chosen to do this instead. The reason being is it's a lot less expensive. The side effects didn't hit until after I stopped using them and using the Chantix, and that's where I really had a hard time. So, but I did quit, and it was about 6 years after I quit. And I was still having horrible days. My anxiety level had gone up from quitting smoking. So my husband started bringing home the disposable e-cigs, and those were a lifesaver. So I tried a few different ones until I found one that I was comfortable with. And then I've, since upgraded to, and this is just a generic Ego Tea and generic clear visor, and I just use plain menthol e-juice with 1.2% nicotine in it. I've tried to go zero nicotine, but for some reason it just doesn't give me the throat hit that I'm looking for. But what I can say is that if you are a smoker and you really want to quit, but you're not sure how, or you've had a really hard time quitting, try doing this, okay? Just try it. The benefits are really great. My breathing, when I quit smoking, of course, like I said, I was quit for 6 years before I started the E6, and my breathing has not changed. It has not worsened from using these. My breathing got a lot better after I quit. Unfortunately, a few years after I quit, I was diagnosed with asthma, but these have not had any adverse effects on my asthma at all. It's just the same as it was 5 years ago, you know, and right after I quit smoking. So that's about all I can tell you, is that if you are a smoker and you're looking to quit, or if you are a former smoker and you don't want to go back to smoking, try the vaporizers. The benefits are fantastic. Okay, thanks. Have a good day.
Thanks. I'll leave the last word with Kevin. Thanks.